This video lesson is going to discuss the Triangle Midsegment Theorem and its relation with similar triangles as we've been discussing in class the past few days. So this is your definition, what the Midsegment Theorem actually tells us. And we're going to look through some examples and see how this applies. So here's an example. This is just the basic picture explaining what the Midsegment Theorem is going to actually look like in a triangle picture. So here you'll notice that AB is cut in half at point E, which tells me that E is a midpoint. D is also a midpoint, since we see that AD and DC are congruent pieces. So we can come to a few conclusions here. First and foremost, triangle AED is similar to triangle ABC. We have these two parallel lines here, line ED and line BC. And we also know that two of the measurements of line ED is the same as one measurement of the line BC. And this is what I'm going to be using in the examples that we look at in just a moment. Okay, so here's an example on how we could be presented with a triangle that deals with midsegments. So they say that H, J, and K are all midpoints of their respective sides on the triangle. So I know that EH and FH are congruent pieces. Similarly, JG and JF are congruent pieces, and EK and GK are also congruent pieces. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with 60 over here, and I'm going to use that to relate with line JK. And I'm going to start just by using a highlighter to show you what pieces correspond with each other. So FE would correspond with side JK. FG would correspond with side HK, which leaves us with HJ and EG. So I'm going to use those color coordinated sides to help us figure out these missing pieces. So I'm going to start with HJ, since that's the first thing it's asking us to find. HJ is related to EG. So two of the HJ sides make one side EG, which tells me that HJ has to be 50. Because 50 times 2 equals 100. Next, I'm going to look at side JK. So this green side here is related to FE. So two of the JK pieces make one FE piece, which means that KJ or JK, however you want to think about it, this isn't working for me. Let's try this again. KJ is 30. And last but not least, I'm going to find FG. So FG is 2 times as long as HK. So I'm going to take 40 and multiply it by 2, which tells me that FG is equal to 80. Here's another example. In this case, I didn't tell you if there were any midpoints on the picture, but you should be able to use your tick marks to jump to the conclusion that both E and B are midpoints. So I can now come onto the picture and say, okay, AB is 10, CD would be 18. So my goal is to find EB, BC, and AC. I'm going to start with BC because I have my congruency tick mark, so that tells me this is 10, And this whole side would have to be 20. And then I need to find EB, which is my midsegment. So 2 of these midsegment pieces is 18, which tells me that EB has to be 9 units. All right, last but not least, my goal is to find TS, which is this side over here. Now, I don't have enough information to go straight to finding TS, but what I do know is that KL and US are related, specifically because those two points, K and L, are midpoints, which means LK is a midsegment. So I can say that 2 of the -3 plus 2x pieces is equal to 1 of the 3x plus 1 pieces. So 2 of the midsegments is equal to 1 of the full segment. So this would give me -6, plus 4x, because I can correctly multiply by 2. Equals 3x plus 1, which is going to lead us to, x equals 7. So now that I know the value of x, I can substitute that into x plus 1. So that would tell me that the length of LT is 8. But they didn't ask me about LT, they asked me about ST. Since these two pieces are congruent, both of these are 8, which tells me that line TS, or the length of that side on the triangle, would be 16 units. You have the midsegment practice that I gave you in class today. Using the information that I went through in this video lesson, give those a try, bring them back to class tomorrow, and we'll discuss them before we start review for the test.